Hello, my name is Brady Bessette. Welcome back to the classroom. If you haven't been here before, make sure to be good friends with the subscribe button and the bell if you're feeling extra nice. And if you have been here before, you're probably wondering, well, it's a Thursday, why is a video being put out? And you know, you're so used to videos being put out on Mondays. Well, I thought about making an addition to this channel with something called Study Hall. And ultimately, my plan for Study Hall is to just be able to provide you guys with quick on-the-go tips as you're cruising through your work week, with hopes that it could add some pizzazz to your projects or any of your footage. So in Hollywood and practically anywhere else, we often see the most natural and realistic looking footage when the shutter speed doubles its frame rate. This gives the smoothest motion blur and the most natural look without making your footage look super gritty when you adjust the shutter speed. So if you're shooting in a traditional 24 frames a second frame rate, your shutter speed should technically be 1/48th of a second, or for most cameras 1/50th of a second. And then if you're shooting in 1/30th of a second, it's going to be 1/60th of a second, so on and so forth. For a 60 frames a second frame rate, you're going to be shooting 120, so on and beyond. Today we're talking about neutral density filters and why ND filters are hands down the most important thing that you can have in your kit. So looking at this example of me very poorly playing the guitar outside, I know that I've got my camera set to 24 frames a second, so doubling that 1/48th of a second or 1/50th is what my shutter speed should be. And I know that I want the background to be super blurry, so I drop that aperture all the way open to 1.428, something really wide open to get a blurry background. And you see here, obviously it is absolutely way too bright, unusable. So now, assuming we've already adjusted the ISO all the way down as low as it goes to 100 or whatever your camera does, we're left with two different options to darken this image in camera. So the first option that we're gonna try is to close up that aperture, really make that small, let as little light in as possible. And the exposure looks great. Everything looks really, really good on it, but you now see that that depth of field that we really wanted, that shallow depth of field, is gone. And we can see almost everything going down the neck of the guitar into the background with the flowers and beyond. So we know that's not what we want. Let's reverse that, bring the aperture back down to 1.4, whatever you've got it at. So let's try to dive in and find our next solution. So our only other option that we're left with in camera is to adjust the shutter speed and really make that a lot faster. And here's where we really introduce the problem. So the faster you make your shutter speed, so more towards 1/100th of a second, 200th, 500th, 1000th of a second, the faster you make your shutter speed, the less motion blur you allow to happen. So now that we've adjusted our shutter speed and left our depth of field really, really shallow at that wide open aperture, the exposure looks great, but looking at the strings as I start to play, you immediately notice that the strings look almost loose or wobbly, definitely not natural. They almost kind of wave back and forth. And that's really, really where you see how shutter speed and losing that motion blur affects the, I guess, realism and natural look of your shot. Here's an example of another shot, and if you have epilepsy or anything, the next shot's kind of really weird to look at, so please just look away. I don't want to risk anything happening to you. I'd feel so terrible. But with this example of the ceiling fan, with the shutter speed how it should be, it's got that natural spinning blur to it, and you see the motion. You can't actually see the individual blades, but it looks natural and real. But as you crank down that shutter speed and get it a lot closer to, say, even 1,000th of a second, you really see the blades like individually, and it's got this really obscure look, and it's extremely far from Hollywood and natural and anything. So back to the guitar shot, we've tried everything we can in camera to get the shot that we need, and nothing seems to work. It practically seems impossible maybe at this point. So the answer to that is our neutral density filters, or ND filters. The best way to explain neutral density filters is that they're pretty much sunglasses for your camera. And the reasoning behind that is that ND filters will cut the light significantly as it goes through your lens, allowing you to get the settings that you really need. Neutral density filters come in screw-on form or drop-in form for matte boxes. They come in single stop, or I guess single strength, or other ones like this one have a variable neutral density filter, so you can kind of spin it and change the strength of it. I personally use the Tiffin one. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. I'm no Goldilocks, but the Tiffin is just right. And that about wraps it up. Neutral density filters at this point are definitely the solution to all of your problems. And as I said before, if there is one thing other than a camera that someone should have in their kit as a filmmaker, that's it. It's a neutral density filter, hands down. There's no more important tool to have. So if you like the new concept of Study Hall, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of it. And that about wraps it up. Thanks for coming to Study Hall. Study Hall dismissed. I gotta work on that one. See you guys.